Welcome to Plead the Facts, presented by KI Legal. On today's episode, Michael Iakovou, co-founder of KI Legal, is joined by me, Anthony Orisses, founder of Rare Cut, to discuss my journey starting my own business in New York City, from inception to future expansion.
Hi everyone, I'm Mike from KI Legal. I'm joined here, Anthony Orisses, CEO, starter, founder, everything of Rare Cut. Today's topic that we're going to be discussing is starting your own business in New York City, from inception to expansion, aka the entrepreneur life. It is a calling. It is something that not many people can do. It really, in my opinion, also being an entrepreneur, it is something that requires a certain sense of bravery and fortitude. And Anthony, thank you so much for joining us today. And I should also note that Anthony's also a good friend.
Yep.
So we're gonna be a little bit more difficult and forceful with him today. Try to ask some really difficult questions. But
I love that. I'm ready for them.
Anthony, tell us a little bit about Rare Cut.
Let's go. First and foremost, appreciate being here. Thank you for having me on. I've known Mike a long time. Rare Cut is a company that I founded officially in 2020. Now, the concept for Rare Cut came in 2019, and what Rare Cut is we are an apparel company, but our flagship product is a proprietary pocket square that has memory metal in the center. And yes, of course, I brought examples.
Very nice.
Of course, I gotta be prepared. But we have a memory metal in the center, so no matter how you bend, twist, or fold this pocket square, it retains its shape. So when you put it in your pocket, it stays up, and that is our tongue-in-cheek tagline. It stays up, so it definitely helps with marketing, and it's memorable. But basically, I saw, I wear jackets a lot, suits, and I would see that every guy was walking around New York City with a floppy pocket square. And I went to a dinner, an awards dinner at work for my day job, and my manager was about to go on stage, and he was fussing. He's a very cool, collected guy, but he knew he was getting an award, so he was fussing around a little bit, and he's like, "Anthony, can you make adjustments for me?" Fixed his tie, he had some fluff in his hair, took that out, and then he kept fidgeting with this. And he's like, he gave it to me, he's like, "Please fix this, I don't know what to do here." I'm like, "I don't know what to do." So I kind of morphed it, gave it back to him, and he goes, "My wife bought this for me, it's a $100 pocket square," which was like a very interesting flex. I didn't know they made $100 pocket squares at that time. So he goes on stage, he gives a speech, standing ovation. The next day we got the pictures back from the event, and he broadcast it on the TVs, and that $100 pocket square, nowhere to be seen in any of the pictures.
Really?
Yes. So
it had slipped into the little pocket over here?
Yep, totally fell. Wow. Floppy, sloppy and floppy. And, he said to me, he was frustrated, he goes, I told him, "If you have a $100 pocket square that can't be seen, it's essentially worthless." And he's like, "I'm done with these." Another event, you were actually at it, believe it or not. I don't know if I've even shared this with you. We were at our friend Nick Athanasopoulos' wedding.
Okay.
And we're all in the basement getting ready as groomsmen, and it's just a bunch of clueless dudes having no idea how to shape a pocket square, myself included. I remember everyone going around the room, passing it around, not knowing what to do, and everyone's looked kind of off and didn't look quite right. So those two examples, for whatever reason, just stuck in my mind. Yeah, and that's really where the concept came from.
That's crazy, because so many good ideas come from everyday problems, right? Big or small.
Right.
And it's just being in tune with what's going on with other people and other businesses, and always being solution oriented. Those are the creators, the inventors of the world. So kudos to you. So that was in 2019, 2020.
So the idea came out in 2016 is when the idea kind of popped in my head, and then I slowly started making progress. But around 2016 is when I started thinking of this.
So what's the first thing you did after you decided, that's it, I'm doing this?
Okay, so the first thing I did was I called an attorney. Call your attorneys, ladies and gentlemen. Good resources. And I called an attorney. Someone got me in touch with specifically a patent attorney that worked for Medtronic, which is the company I work for, is my full-time job.
Got it.
She referred someone else. One thing led to another, and the attorney I spoke with said, "This is a really good idea. We're going to search to see, the database, see if it exists. But if it doesn't exist, I strongly think this is something you should go for. This is just me speaking to you on the side. I go, okay, cool. Did a search, came back. Hey, I have really good news. This product or this concept does not exist. She goes, you might want to run with this. So that was the first thing I did. After that, I spoke to several engineers, and I'm talking about like real, bare bones. I was trying to explain to people what I wanted, and they weren't quite getting it. So I took 2 pocket squares, I took aluminum foil, I put it in the center. I'd like to say I sewed it, but I give it to my mom. She's very good with that. I'm like, can you help me with this? I don't know what I'm doing. She's like, got you. In like 2 minutes, she had it ready. And I had our first prototype, which will go in our Rare Cut Hall of Fame one day. But that is what I used to give to engineers. And they're like, oh, I get what you're trying to get at. And through a lot of experimentation, a lot of R&D, way longer than I could have anticipated, we came up with the final product, but not after years of experimentation.
Got it. Yeah, sometimes you have to work out the quote-unquote kinks in order to make the product work the way you want it to work.
Absolutely.
And then, so you go to the lawyers, you go to the engineers, and then what?
Okay, then, and again, I should also point out that took way longer than I anticipated. When I was on the phone with my attorney, and she might have just asked this for kicks, she probably knew the answer. She goes, at what point do you think you're going to have this company up and running? I go, 10 months, a year. I had no idea what I was in store for. First time entrepreneur. I've always been business minded and oriented, taking on small projects, but never my own enterprise. So this was my first. And you learn a lot throughout the way. And I've watched every episode of Shark Tank. I've read all the books. I listen to all the podcasts. I go to all the events. But nothing prepares you for entrepreneurship like starting your own company.
No, it's you just have to kind of go through all the steps, right? And it's a tremendous learning experience. And what I tell my clients is, hey, listen, mistakes are okay, but you have to learn from them, right?
Yes.
Because if you don't learn from them, you're probably not suited for what you're setting out to embark on.
Totally.
Again, on that point, what were like the biggest lessons that you learned from that initial period?
From the initial period, several things. First and foremost, I'm going to go against, I don't want to even say conventional wisdom, but advice that in the entrepreneurial circle or even aspiring entrepreneurs hear this all the time, and I'm here to tell you the opposite. And it's the less sexy advice, but I think it needs to be said. If you're getting into something brand new, I do not recommend you leave your job and go all in on a side hustle and just say, okay, all in. At some point, yes, when you feel like, hey, I'm really gaining traction, we're seeing big sales come in, I can make that jump, then do it. But I think so many entrepreneurs are misguided and told because they listen to big name entrepreneurs that are already established, and they almost forget where they were when they started. It's the worst thing you can do, because if I, especially in the beginning, just had to rely on Rare Cut, I would probably have panicked. I might have quit. I don't know what would have happened. I'd like to say I would have stuck through, but who knows? But because I had and I still do, my full-time job, it allowed me to kind of let the process ride out in a more natural way instead of having to force things. Yeah. And because of that, it kind of organically got to where it had to get, because I was like, okay, you know what? I can pay my mortgage, I can eat, I can go out without having to worry. So that was the number one thing I learned. The second thing I learned, I'm going to say 2 more. The second thing I learned was share the journey. A lot of times people get self-conscious of, am I posting too much? Do people really want to hear this? People, when you post, you almost tend to think that, okay, because I posted for today, this is the highlight in everyone's day. It's really just your highlight of your day. People are just clicking really fast.
And they may or may not see it.
They may or may not see it, right? And even if they do see it, like I'm guilty. Somebody posts like all these birthday posts, and I'm at like the 6th one. I'm like, oh, it's their birthday, just because you have other things going on in your mind. If you're starting a business, you have to be your number one advocate and self-promoter. So what I did is, over the years, along the way, I did behind the scenes, and I told people, hey, guys, I'm working with this fabric, and which one looks better, and which pattern looks better, and also, guys, I'm here. I've been at this factory for over an hour, and just people seeing behind the scenes are like, hey, let me root you on, and they felt invested. So when it came time to launch on Kickstarter eventually, they felt like they were a part of that journey. And when you're invested in somebody and you see them before they really take off, you want to help them succeed.
It's important to the people watching you because they inherently want to see you succeed, right?
Yes.
They're invested in the journey. Before we get to Kickstarter, and that is something that is very, very germane to many entrepreneurs. Again, a new medium to raise money and really take your project, your side hustle to the next level. Liquidity is always the most important thing when you're starting out. And this relates to starting a business plan, right? To drafting a business plan.
Right.
I can't tell you how important that is for a variety of reasons. One is you want to just put pen to paper and see what do the next 6 months, 12 months look like, right? And again, as long as the business plan should always be revisited on a monthly, quarterly basis, whatever it may be. It's not a stale document; it's a living document.
Right.
It keeps you on target, and it also makes you flush out problems that you never even thought about had you not drafted that business plan.
Mm-hmm.
So that is one of the first things I ask for when I'm representing a startup or an entrepreneur. Send me your business plan. And if I hear I don't have one, and I get concerned because it shows me that you have not thought about this business enough. You have not thought of, well, what does my P&L look like? What do I want it to look like? What do I want my capital burn to look like? What are my 6 months of expenses that I need to earmark so that I can quit my job and really go after this full force? It is super important, and it may or may not be, and I actually don't know the answer, something that the potential investors may want to see on Kickstarter to the extent you can share it without any proprietary information. Walk us through the Kickstarter campaign.
Yeah, so like I was saying, and also to your point, I should say, that's absolutely right. Especially if you need investors, that's the first thing they're going to ask for is your business plan. So if you don't have one or one that's not well put together, they're going to say, hey, this person's running this as a hobby as opposed to an actual business. So that's what really differentiates you in the eyes of many investors.
And yes, and if you are going to be using investors, limited partners, whatever, to your point, they're going to want to see a business plan, and they also may demonstrate some control over that business plan. Again, depending on the size of their investment, you have someone who's going to come in and give you $20 million on a startup that outside of the proprietary technology, maybe there isn't an actual market evaluation for it. You're going to listen to what they say to a certain extent, as long as it doesn't deviate entirely from the vision. But if they kind of want this to be changed a little bit, rather than fabricating and producing this product stateside, have you considered going to Asia, right? Mm-hmm. Again, that's a common thing that we hear all the time because of labor cost and product cost, etc. We'll get into that. But yeah, going back to Kickstarter, what was that like?
So Kickstarter, to me, I looked at it as an opportunity to see if there was a need and a market for this. So it gives you a nice test run into
it's almost like a feasibility study, right? Because the market is speaking to you.
Perfect. Yes, exactly. And the market will dictate whether there's a need for your product or not. And granted, there's many variables, but it's a good way to start. And also, it's a nice opportunity to start a business when you're not even 100% say ready, because there's so many things that pop up like distribution, manufacturing, production. So it gives you a little bit of leeway to get your concept out there, and people don't necessarily put your feet to the fire in terms of like, you said you deliver by this day. It's a very forgiving platform because people who are investing in you, they more so invest in the jockey, right? The entrepreneur, oftentimes more so than the product itself. So I looked at it as an opportunity to give a great test run. And for those of you who don't know what Kickstarter is a crowdfunding platform, and I'm not going to sit here and swear by Kickstarter, the platform itself, because there's so many other ones that you can use, but I'd say in terms of popularity, it's the most popular one. So Kickstarter, I swore that I was going to launch my business, and I don't know why I was really like, I like this number. I'm going to launch at 9/9/19. It just sounded cool. So I'm like, that's going to be my launch date. It's after summer, after Labor Day. makes sense. I went to a wedding in Greece that summer, and for 2 weeks I was trying to get work done, and everywhere you go in Greece, as you know, sometimes you can't escape family, friends. I was in like an isolated bar on a beach that was like hidden, and I posted up doing work. 15 minutes later, I see distant cousins that show up, and they're sending shots to the table, and granted it's like 1 in the afternoon, and it was very hard to get work done, and it was constantly on my mind. So once September rolled around, to be quite honest, I did not feel like I was amply prepared to launch. So I pushed it back, and I think you're never going to ever feel 100% ready. I should also point that out.
Sure.
But I knew I was not ready. So the next launch date was March 23rd, 2020.
Oh.
I think you know what happened then.
The worst time to start a business or start anything.
Exactly. So
Got it.
the world found out what COVID was, and I was ready at that point. But I was like, you know what? This feels like a very inappropriate time to launch a business. Really inappropriate.
So you didn't launch that day?
No.
Good call.
Could not.
Yeah,
Bad PR.
Just bad everything, because you're right. It's so hard to start a business or to launch a product. There's so many distractions nowadays. You go on your phone, you have social media, texting, this, that. We're living in a time where people's attention spans are like this. I mean, they even say, going back, we haven't touched on marketing yet, like if your website doesn't download within I forget what the metric is, 2 seconds. First of all, it has to be cell phone, smartphone friendly. And if it doesn't download or load quickly, if you look at the metrics, people 80%, 60%, whatever the number is, they automatically just cancel, they go to the next thing, right? So it was a good call on you not launching on the 23rd. When did you launch?
Yeah, there's so many unknowns with COVID, especially at that point in time too. If you really take yourself back to March of 2020. So what happened was I ended up launching 6 months later in September of 2020. Now, let's go back in time. This is a time where most people were not going anywhere because they could not go anywhere. There were lockdowns. We couldn't go out to bars. We couldn't go to clubs. We couldn't go to work, right? Even myself in my day job, they didn't want us there. At the hospitals, they didn't want us there. Unless you absolutely have to be there, don't come. Work from home. So it was a weird time.
It was Netflix, Zoom, and Peloton, right? Everything.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, actually.
It's what a crazy time.
Oh my! I mean, I'm glad that's over with, and hopefully it's over for forever. But so I ended up launching and taking the plunge because even still, I was like, I'm the founder, and I'm here. I'm working from home. I'm wearing sweats. I'm not getting dressed up. No one's getting dressed up to go anywhere. Is this even going to take off? So all of a sudden, I had a new issue before I even launched that was not an issue for all the years planning, and I had my pandemic baby, as we call it. So I launched my company September 2020, really in the midst of lockdowns, pandemic.
It was crazy.
It was insane. And I gotta say, what we talked about earlier, the constant posting throughout the years, word of mouth, people seeing the journey really paid off, because I think in our first day, I know in the first, I want to say 20 minutes, we hit 10K, and in 30 days, we did over 50K for an apparel company during the midst of a pandemic. That was really, I really was a vote of confidence, and it just validated
affirmation to what you were doing. Yeah,
correct. Yeah.
Now, that Kickstarter campaign, and I actually have done a Kickstarter campaign. Did you implement the use of a video to sell your product or to explain your product? Was it pictures? Talk about that a little bit.
Right. So doing a Kickstarter launch is and launching your website are two different beasts, and they're both very complicated, time consuming, and they have to be very different from one another. So yes, there was a video that I shot. I actually ended up shooting it a couple times, because the first version I looked at, I had shot it a year and a half prior, and some of the things I'm like, ooh, we could have done better here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I was like, a little cringy some of the parts. There was some dancing.
It's like this podcast. If you look at where we are now versus where I was last year doing this, I mean, we've come a long way.
Yeah, so it's evolution right there.
Yeah, exactly. You just get better with practice.
Right. And they say with anything, whether it's a podcast or a pocket square, if you're not what's the expression? If you're not embarrassed with the first version of something you released, it means you launched too late. Because things are going to evolve, they're going to get better. This podcast is getting better. My company is getting better. And you have to just take that dive, and that's the hardest part. The hardest part is starting. It's very hard to start, but once you do, you get forward momentum, and you keep at it.
So getting started, right, you're on I'm not saying you, but generally entrepreneurs are on a shoestring budget, right?
Yes.
You have to make sure your spend is properly allocated.
Yeah.
And again, that goes back to business plan, right? You want to know, if I have $10,000 to help get this business off the ground using a round number, am I putting, what are the industry metrics for how much marketing spend? Is it 30% of your budget? Is it, then you have to, develop this product, R&D, right? Is that 50%? How do you break down every dollar when you're starting out in this space?
Well, initially with Kickstarter, you're raising funds because you wouldn't be on Kickstarter if you didn't want to raise funds, so it's a little bit different.
But now the funds are in your possession.
This is after Kickstarter, you're saying, right?
Yeah, so let's say, so put Kickstarter aside or not. Let's say you do hit your goal, and the money is dispersed to you, right? And just using round numbers, $10,000, that's what you have, hypothetically, and these are not true numbers. If, knowing everything you know right now, launching this product, how would you allocate that $10,000 to R&D, to marketing, and Johnny Walker Black? No, no. Between those, is there something else that I'm missing here? Because you don't have employees yet.
Right.
Insurances, things of that nature, legal, accounting, mostly legal, right? You spoke about a patent lawyer. You came to your, I know you came to me for a couple things, and
yes,
we can disclose that, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, okay, client consent.
Yeah.
It's you have to go to lawyers when you start a business, at least in this country.
You have to. And yes, there's always budget for Johnny Black, so I agree with that. I would say for me, the majority of my costs were in the patenting process, and we're still patent pending because, as you know, the courts were not taking cases for such a long time, and I just had a call 2 weeks ago with an examiner. Fingers crossed, I think we're going to get it extremely soon. Nice. But yeah, thank you. I think we're going to get it extremely soon, and that'll be a game changer for many different reasons in the eyes of investors. Saying patented sounds better than patent pending.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? So it's one less word. But I would say, legal accounts for a lot, but there's a reason why, because you need it, especially for me.
That's what I want to ask you about. You mentioned patent pending,
right.
And we spoke about other countries and other places to sell this product. But have you come across any copycats to date?
So I was really nervous about that, and I don't know if it exists. I know the name Rare Cut has been used in some other spaces, and then they used our colors. They sell meat, but they came out I think like a year ago, and they took our colors. So I reached out to them and
cease and desist.
Pretty much, yeah. Well, it was more. I would say this. It wasn't. We had one ready, but my patent attorney looked into it, and we tried to see what was is this a violation of some sort? We sent a message, and they changed their colors right away, so I didn't have to get there. I think sometimes, and sometimes with certain entrepreneurs, you might take a different approach as opposed to a big conglomerate in kind of your talk track, and that seemed to work.
Yeah, and again, I mean, it all comes down to confusing the marketplace, right? If in that example, this copycat, although different asset class, different type of product, is infringing on your IP rights, it is important that even if it's patent pending, that you protect those rights, and that's just how the law works. You use it or lose it, as they say. That's why we have things of statute of limitations. There's time frames that you need to abide by, and it's when you find out about a possible infraction, how do you handle it? So it is important that you just don't sit on things, that you are proactive rather than reactive, which is a term I always like to use.
Right, and also we've worked together as well, and I know we've drafted up some contracts, and then working with certain artists, you want to make sure that you can use that art and use it in a multitude of different purposes, and an artist doesn't come back after you enjoy success and say, hey, You put that on a T-shirt, for example. I never okayed that, or if you don't have a written agreement, it's what I will say this just from an entrepreneurial standpoint. Sometimes we feel that if you're working with an artist and you present them something to sign, is that going to change kind of the dynamic? Does it show that there's no trust there? But I got to tell you, I think that'll dissipate right away because it's a business, right? You're a business person. That person is a business as an artist, and they get it. It's nothing they haven't seen before. I remember I would have NDAs, and I felt awkward in the beginning. Now it's like no big deal.
Yeah.
Same thing with the contracts that we have put together, presented to artists. They sign it. It's not even a big deal. If they have a question, then we can get that answered. But that's pretty standard procedure, and you have to protect yourself, right? That's why we have insurance for protection, and that's also why you have
KI Legal.
and you have KI Legal.
Yeah.
Nice.
On that point, though, if you're sending out a license agreement, if you're sending out a release, a consent agreement, all of these different non-disclosure agreement, as Anthony illustrated, if that third party is giving you pushback on that, that's a huge red flag. And it could be a red flag for a variety of reasons. One, they are very green in experience and they don't know, therefore who are you getting involved with, right? And the other one is, if they aren't green, if they are experienced and there is pushback on that, that probably means that they have either intent to do something bad with your product or your likeness, etc., or they have done something before not related to you, and they're probably looking to do that again.
Yes.
So there is no variability with this. It's a line in the sand. If you don't do this, then we can't work together.
And this what I'm about to say can be applied to a lot of different areas of life, and certainly with people you work with. But there's an expression: when somebody shows you who they are the first time, or tries to show you who they are the first time, believe them. Whether that's dating or whether that's working with somebody or a friend, if you get weird feelings at the beginning and it's like, this doesn't quite add up, something's not right here. I just asked them to sign this contract. They can have their attorney look it over, and if they refuse, like Mike said, there's probably something shady going on. There's a reason for concern. That is a red flag. So as a business owner and just as a human being, watch out for those red flags, because not everyone has great intentions. You assume people do, but it's just the reality is the opposite.
Okay, so let's get back to the budgeting question, because I
Yes.
think a lot of people really want they want to hear from someone like you that's
Sure,
actually
yeah.
walked this path.
Mhm.
R&D, marketing, and then professionals. How do you allocate your dollar?
So to break that down, it's going to be a little bit different for me, because most of my R&D was front loaded, so it's all in the beginning.
Okay, so taking that hypothetical, let's just amend it a little bit, and let's say we already have the initial iteration, which I am wearing a rare cut here, of your product,
Mm-hmm.
and let's say you want to, it's still year one, and you want to roll out a second line.
Mm-hmm.
How much is going to R&D, and how much is going to marketing of that second line? Because you're established, the local community knows you. Now it's time to take it to the next step.
Okay, of my spend, right? If we're taking that arbitrary number and we're using that to spend, I'd say for what I did and have done, probably around 25% went into R&D.
Okay.
Yeah, 25% R&D, because you got to get it right. And again, it will probably continue to evolve. So there will be another time where we'll be back to the drawing board and making it better. That's kind of the nature of business, right? Marketing, I would say this is going to be very interesting. In the past, I put a good amount into marketing. I'd say maybe about 20 to 30% there, in that range. But what I've noticed is this, and very successful entrepreneurs that I know personally and work with say that's a little backwards. And what you want to do as often as you can, when you're a brand new entrepreneur, they talk about being scrappy, right, for dollar purposes. But also, even when you're established, I think some of the best results you're going to see are when someone does UGC, so user generated content is huge, or asking people to say, hey, I'm going to send you
Like this.
Correct. Yeah. No. This stuff really. This stuff matters, when you do things like this, you collaborate, find ways to work with others, that stuff goes a long way. When you if you see someone online that's maybe a buddy of yours, or maybe it's someone that has expressed interest, or maybe they're an influencer, so to speak, you say, hey, this is my company, it's Rare Cut, and here's what we do. Is it cool if I send you one? And if so, and if you like it, would you mind posting a picture? Sometimes people post pictures, sometimes videos. I've gotten the best of both, and I've gotten better returns on the user-generated content than I have in marketing. And several things are happening right now that have complicated the game. Spending for what I do anyways, I can't speak to KI Law and what you guys do, but just in my world, in my niche world, advertising on Facebook has just gotten really complicated in the last couple of years with the changes that have been made.
The algorithm has changed, right?
Yeah, and also so in the past they were able to kind of identify who you were as an individual. Here are Mike Iakovou's likes, and we're going to target him. Now they don't allow Facebook to access that information, so you're kind of shooting blindly into your audience. So it's harder to find your niche audience, much harder now. And I learned that early in the beginning. Now what you do is, believe it or not, things like TikTok is the best way to grow. I was very resistant to join because I'm like, I have to dance with my family in the living room. But I mean, you could do that. But it's actually the best, and that and LinkedIn are the best two ways to get organic growth right now. Yeah. And that doesn't cost you anything. You can boost posts.
Instagram?
Not as much. I still post. I still make it a point to post. People still go on Instagram, but somebody once told me this, and they're so true. Instagram is social media, but you could be watching TV and be on social media at the same time. When you're on TikTok, it's not social media, it's entertainment, because you can't multitask. You're either watching one or the other. You're not doing both. So it has your full attention. Understood. So capitalize on that while you can. Trust me, this is coming from someone who is extremely resistant to doing so. I wish I started sooner.
Good advice.
Yeah.
That is very good advice.
Yep.
Any plans to enter the Web3 space, NFT space? I know there is a big collaboration between fashion and NFTs. We represent a bunch of different NFT creators here at the firm. So as I was saying, fashion and NFT, crypto, food, hospitality, art, it's all these cross-collateralization of different industries, and I want to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so we haven't yet, however, and I'll be quite honest as well, there's a lot for me still to learn about the world of NFTs. I think I've grasped the main concept of it, but I'm by no means an expert in the field whatsoever.
Well, going back to your artist
Yes.
example, so you take this.
Still sitting up.
It is. So let's say like this artwork, we'll call it, for example's sake, and I make this artwork for you. You say, okay, Michael, you made this artwork, I'm paying you $10 for this, and you're giving me a full release. I own this, you have no claim to this, and I do not owe you any royalties from this. That's how traditional art throughout the ages and ages was sold, bought and sold, right?
Right.
Once I sell it to you, I no longer own it, there's no royalties, there's no flowback model, etc. Whereas with NFTs, it's a bit different. And that's, and what I mean by that, again, it depends on what type of NFT contract, what the white paper says, but there could be perpetual royalties, we'll call it, back to the creator of the NFT. Biggest difference is that. But people have certainly flocked to the NFT space, and I think a digital NFT of a rare cut pocket square would be something that people would really like to have.
So, again, and over that Johnny Walker Black one day, I want to hear more about that for sure. But I have been kind of recommended to look into that space, and it makes sense, right? Because we sell wearable art. That's what we do.
Yeah.
So if we have wearable art, why not also translate that art into an NFT?
Exactly. And if you have cross collateralization, again, or cross use with, say, a celebrity or an influencer who people want to own a piece of artwork, we'll call it an NFT of, say, a rapper, right? And that rapper is wearing a rare cut pocket square. That is something that can be utilized in the NFT space. Right. That is art, and it includes rare cut art. It includes the likeness and imaging of, Kanye West, for example. So people potentially want to buy it and own it, which is the most important thing. So, there's different types of marketing, as we said. Your traditional marketing, whether it's billboards, TV spend, social media spend.
Mm-hmm.
What about old-fashioned guerrilla marketing, getting out, shaking hands, posting up, and just really, because this is a product. The one thing with this product is that it needs to be demonstrated.
Correct.
And I don't think that there's any way better than to actually demonstrate the use case of something other than doing it in person, right? So what are some things you look to participate in, if any?
Yeah, so my favorite thing, and again, I also work for Medtronic. I sell medical devices. It's my day job, so to speak. I like the art of sales. And why I love sales is because I like giving people an option of, hey, here's what exists out there, here's what I offer, and here's why it's of use to you, and why it's better than the competition. I don't get into something unless I firmly believe it's better. Same with my medical device job, and to be honest, if this was not something that was proprietary, if this was just a regular pocket square company, I don't think I would have gotten into it. But because we can make that claim and no one else can copy it, I'm like, okay, because of that, we have this claim to fame that we are different, we are unique, we are a rare cut, and no one else can make this claim. So I can stand behind it because I believe in it. I think what really is, like you mentioned, when it's demonstrated, people get it right away. Like, oh, I get the value here, I understand why this works. I love going to vendor booths. Love. It's my bread and butter. I absolutely love meeting people. I'm a people person by nature, as are you. And I love getting in front of people, demonstrating in person. So anytime there's an opportunity to do...
what are some of the expos you've attended?
So I went to... The first one I ever did was the Hermes Expo. Right? So it's Greek-backed and owned. Met a lot of good contacts there. And sometimes you don't just look at the sales numbers from the day. Because I also think bigger picture and down the line... It's like, oh, I actually met so-and-so that referred me to more business, who got me in touch with this person, who got me in the newspaper, who did X, Y, Z. So it's not, you can't just be thinking about numbers all the time. There's more than that, especially with having a business. It's a slow build.
It's your branding.
Yeah,
it's your market branding.
Totally.
And just to give you an example, in my former life, when I opened up a couple martial arts schools, as you know, we would go to expos, festivals, movie theaters, you name it, wherever there was a public gathering space, and we would demonstrate our martial art in front of hundreds of people, right? And they would say, well, what school is that, right? What type of martial art is that? What's that technique? Blah, blah, blah. And we built a very successful martial arts school by doing that type of guerrilla physical marketing. But it's a lost art, right?
It is.
So many entrepreneurs think that they can just rely on the cell phone, right? Take a TikTok video, take a social media video. But going out and shaking hands, it's free.
Right.
So why not do it?
So we had an idea for something we wanted to do ready for the date on this? February 2020, of going up to people on Wall Street. And if people didn't have a pocket square, or if it was floppy, and we were to go up to them and just say, just kind of make light of it, almost like Impractical Jokers-ish.
Yeah.
And then eventually, when the skit was done, present them with a rare cut pocket square and give it to them.
Yeah.
But you also have to read the room, and for the last couple of years, it's a little bit different now, but running up to somebody in the world of social distancing just didn't seem like the right fit, so we didn't do that, but you could be seeing that pretty soon, just saying.
So let's discuss expansion.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Where are you, where could one buy Rare Cut right now, and where do you anticipate one to be able to buy Rare Cut in 12 months from now?
Perfect, love that question. All right, so right now, our products are available on rarecut.com. We are also in several stores at the moment as well, one being Rothman's. Shout out to Rothman's, one of my favorite stores in New York City. First store to believe in us and give us that opportunity, so forever grateful. I see this... Okay, so when I started this business, right, like I mentioned, I didn't just want to have a pocket square company. That doesn't quite do it for me. I'm not really interested in just having a company with a product. I really have to get juiced about something, and as you know, I'm a person that's... If I'm passionate about something, you know. I wanted, and my intention of getting into this or anything I got into was start a brand with a purpose. And that's what this evolved into. Mike was kind enough, and again, big supporter, not just through, KI Legal's, legal work and, the support when the Kickstarter came out. But, we did our first kind of outside the box marketing effort this was during pandemic, right? We launched the pandemic baby, and now it's just like, okay, what do we do now? And a lot of businesses were closing, and a lot of people were struggling. So we asked business owners like Mike, how do you stay up? Because our tagline is "It stays up," so we got to stay true to the brand. How do you stay up during these hard times?
Yes, I remember that campaign you ran.
Yeah.
Damn, that was that long ago.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So we had a specific pocket square. It was like that classic New York City blue coffee cup. In the middle, it said "Shop Local," and on top, instead of steam from the coffee, was the top of the torch from the Statue of Liberty, and that represented, really what most of us came here for, was the land of opportunity to make a name for yourself. And during COVID times, these were really being tested, and people were losing faith. And I just wanted to get into the mindset of business owners. And I'm going to quote someone. It's a weird person to quote, but there's value in the quote. Very weird person to quote. It's Joseph Stalin. But he did say, the death of one person is a tragedy. The death of 10,000 people is a statistic. Now, what does that mean to me when I hear that? It means when you hear all these businesses are closing, oh, that's another one. Oh, that's crazy. We're desensitized. But when we hear, Grandpa Joe down the block who has a shoe shine place, well, after 47 years of being in business, they're shut down. They're no more. That hurts. You feel that. Yeah. So I wanted to show and showcase real individuals, real businesses, real people. Mike gave a great example, and again, I thank you for that and being a part of that. But that's one of the things that we did, and we also wanted to back up, put our money where our mouth was. So we gave a portion of the proceeds to the Barstool Fund, who was really like spearheading, supporting local businesses in that time. That's the first we did. The second is last year, and we brought it back again this year, was we did something for breast cancer awareness. We also did shirts because we had a lot of women that reached out and said, hey, we want to support Rare Cut and this cause. I know we're pocket squares, but how can I help? So we came out with shirts for both campaigns. And I'm actually wearing it now. So basically we made our own design, unique. We have two hands here. One is the women that go through their breast cancer journey, and the second is the people and the individuals that support them in that journey. And we made our take on the ribbon. Last year we donated to the Avon Foundation.
Sure.
This year we teamed up with Cat's Ribbon of Hope. Someone who's become a dear friend of mine, going through her own breast cancer journey. Out in Long Island, and has been dealing with this for quite some time, but is an inspiration to so many people. We decided to say, hey, let's work with her and her foundation. And to me, that's what drives me. And I'm always like, okay, what's the next step? And I have quite a few things in mind, and I'll give you a sneak peek. You'll be the first to hear about it, and your audience. Because of how much I was just like, this feels right, doing these things for causes. We're like, okay, what's next? Next is Movember, right? So we wanted to do something for men who, obviously Movember deals with prostate cancer and testicular cancer. Right. So we came up with a pattern that has like almost outlines of faces on there, gentlemen with different beards. I present it to Michael Iakovou as the first recipient of the Movember pattern.
Thank you.
This is yours.
My beard.
He's gonna end up modeling for us for the camera.
Former life.
Yeah. Well, we'll have you on there. But no,
it's beautiful.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I just wanted to show you that because that's where the company is going, is working with causes like this. And
it's a social, like the social equity platform, social consciousness community version of your marketing campaign, but also for what the product stands for.
Yes.
And that's one thing that, irrespective of what it is, if whether it's a product or you're a local restaurant, if people feel like you're part of the community, then they want to support you. Right. And I know you have a tremendous following. There's so many people in local New York City area that are they want to see you succeed, and you are succeeding. This brand, this product is growing, and I'm very excited to see what the next 12 months have for you.
Thank you.
I think you mentioned a couple things that are great ideas, specifically catering to the female population as well, because that's 51% of everybody who lives in this world.
Right.
And you mentioned one other thing, which I've never heard you say before. This is not a standalone product. Rare Cut encompasses something more. And whatever that is, you don't have to tell us yet, but I'm sure that it's, it might be this tremendous jacket that you're wearing. I have no idea, but when I think of Rare Cut, that's what I want to think of, like sleek, the modern GQ defined person, not just man, but person. And I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you so much. And if I may to your point, thank you for saying all that. That means a lot, especially coming from a dear friend. To your point, I feel like I have a very loyal following, and I think that's a thing. You start with one. It's going to be you, and then maybe your family members, and it's a slow build. I think a lot of times people get very they get impatient, and they're like, I'm not where I want to be yet. I'm not where I want to be yet. I'm sure, and you got a beautiful office here. I've seen you climb up, and I'm sure you're not even where you want to be yet, because that's life, right?
And that's the entrepreneur mindset, right?
Right.
It's the insatiableness, the not being satisfied with status quo. Always want to better yourself.
Right.
To be an entrepreneur, inherently, you have to be selfish, right? Because you have to be self-interested. And people who just settle, or they let other people dictate, the naysayers, as you said before, people that doubted you and still continue to doubt you. If you don't have it in you, then you're never going to survive that, because there's going to be difficult times, whether financially, whether it's I'm just tired, I don't want to do this. I'm sure there were many times you had to go to an expo or to a demonstration, and you were like, I just want to stay in bed and watch football all day on a Sunday, right?
Facts. Yes, that
but
has
you got
happened.
up off of your rear and you drove out to New Jersey or whoever,
Yep.
and you posted up and you shook hands and you educated the population on what your product is. And I kudos to you, man.
Thank you so much. And then I just want to say what's next for Rare Cut is, and I should also mention, right now I hope to be in this building one day. I would love to. Right now we are a humble start. Again, and really it's a company of one. We're gonna expand, of course, but you wear a lot of hats when you're an entrepreneur, and I run pretty much the entire show. And we're based out of my HQ is my garage in Astoria, Queens, New York. And you know what? I love it while I'm there, and I'm happy to be there. And I also know that my future is not forever there. But while you're going through it, some people might look at that and be like, oh, your HQ is a garage in Queens. I look at it like, a lot of companies got started in a garage somewhere. Why am I not going to be the next big company?
Microsoft did, right?
Apple,
Yeah.
So many, right?
Yeah.
And the next thing that we're doing is, and we just came up with this, is custom design. So we want to start working on weddings, monograms for wedding parties. Just we have your monogram, your wedding date underneath. Give that to the groomsmen. That's a big market that we're excited to tap into. And the second is working with businesses, getting their logos on there for their employees or for gifts, or even one-offs in the future. Like, I want to have the ability to say, hey, you want to put your dog on there? You want to put your granddaughter on there? We can do that. So that's where I see the future of this company going. And last thing that I'll say is I love what you said earlier about kind of like, what does this embody, right? What does Rare Cut embody? And just the very name is kind of, I think is telling of why I got into this, and the not just the individual that I aspire to be, but I think the people that we cater to and our audience, right? Rare Cut comes from two things: being a rare breed and cut from a different cloth. So that's kind of the individuals that we're looking to sell to. That is our audience, so to speak, and that's the person that I aspire to be as an entrepreneur and an individual. So. That's our story.
Well, there you have it. Anthony Orisses, founder, CEO extraordinaire of Rare Cut. Any questions? How can people find your product?
Oh yeah, again, rarecut.com is where you find the product. And if you guys are on social, if you could show us some love, it's Rare Cut on all the social platforms as one word, but across the board. Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, all one word. Even Twitter. We don't tweet that much, but with Elon taking over, maybe we'll tweet a little bit more. But at Rare Cut across the board, check us out.
Thanks everyone, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.